Greetings and welcome to PinballHelp. Mike here. Today, work continues on these Gottlieb System80 pop bumper driver boards, and this is part 2 in a series where we're diagnosing problems with pop bumpers on System80 games. And I've pulled the pop bumpers off, and I'm going to go over the standard things you want to do on these boards to kind of bulletproof them, and talk about a couple of different optional modifications. So this is an original board. This has been the revised version. If you find one that has a diode here and then the capacitor is flipped the other way around, you know you've got the older version and it'll need to be modified. This is the revised version, but there's still some mods that you can do to this. Most obvious is replacing this electrolytic capacitor, just because they tend to go bad after about 10 years or so. This is an original 4.7 microfarad, and I believe it was a 10 volt. I only had a 25 volt, so I replaced it. But they recommend actually that you upgrade this to a 100 or a 200 microfarad. Now, the other mods you want to do to this, and before I talk about the capacitor, let's look at this. You want to reflow these solder joints here that are on the connector. It's a very common problem where things could get cracked. So you go over and just reflow these pins on the connector, and then take some sandpaper and clean these contacts really well, wire brush, a Scotch-Brite pad, whatever, and that'll kind of help address the issues. Now, you can completely rebuild all of these, but it's really not necessary. And if you want to test this transistor to see whether or not it's good, you can do that with your multimeter here. You set it to diode, and you put the black lead on either one of the lugs, and then you touch each of the leads. Should be from 0.4 to 0.6 volts. You can see, and that's intolerance there. And you can also replace this with a tip 102 transistor if it is bad. And I've got one of these. You can still get them, but they're kind of pricey. It's easier to replace those with a tip 102, but we'll check it against a brand new one. So you just touch the case and then go 0.5, 0.6. So that's all intolerant. This is likely good. No problems with it. So let's talk about some other recommended enhancements. Now, what I've done, this is a standard board that I just replaced with all the exact components, the same rating capacitor here. There's another mod they recommend, putting a little bit of a higher thing. So this has got 100 microfarad. We're going to test them both and see if there's a noticeable difference. And this also has an extra capacitor mounted between these two pins here. And this is a 4.7 microfarad. In Clay's guide, he says a 10 volt. I didn't have a 10 volt. The lowest I had was a 50 volt, so it's a 4.7 microfarad 50 volt. Hopefully that's not going to cause any problems. I don't think it will. And you run it between pins 4 and 5. And you do the negative side towards the middle pin, third pin from the top. And see if we can get a nice close-up of that. You can see. So this supposedly cuts down on noise from the pop bumper firing a few extra times sometimes. So we're going to try this and see if this works even better. If so, then I'll mod all my boards with this extra capacitor here, and we'll put them in the machine and we'll check them out and we will see how it works. So stay tuned for the next part.